What's going on, Seville? Welcome to another episode of the Seville Sports Mentality Show with the Sports Rev and Mr. Grubb, coming to you, giving you show number 9. What's going on with you, Mr. Grubb?
Everything's great, man. Everything is good. Wonderful day today. No rain, no snow, nothing but sunshine.
No doubt about it, and we're definitely glad that the snow has at least left us for at least a week. So we hope that will continue to be the same spirit for the rest of this year and come back and visit us maybe sometime in December when we're looking for some snow.
I always say, Rev, I don't believe there's a need for snow. even though it's wet, it's precipitation. All we need is rain. That's it.
All right. Well, that's a conversation I guess you need to have with God right about now. Again, welcome to the Seville Sports Mentality Show on the 610 Seville Sports Network. If you don't mind, if you haven't already done so, please hit that like button on Facebook. Go ahead on and share this broadcast. Also, if you're watching the show via YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. And we are so glad to finally be able to stream directly to the 610 Seville Sports Network Facebook page. We are now out of Facebook purgatory. How do you feel about that, Mr. Grubb?
I feel free.
You feel? It's like Martin Luther King, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, the sports network is free at last. As we normally do it, ladies and gentlemen, we like to do our cash check-in. So if you are a graduate of Coatesville Area High School, will you please be so kind, put your name in the chat, also the year that you graduated. And if you're not a graduate of Cash, please let us know that you're watching. Put that name in the chat as well. But as we do each week, we start with Mr. Grubb representing Cash. And what is that year that you graduated from Cash?
1995.
1995. Now, that was actually before the era of the internet. And I know that because I graduated that same year. Now, I just want to see if the music was different between Coatesville and Atlanta at the time, because that's where I graduated from high school. So who was the top rapper during your senior year here in Coatesville?
I would say Biggie Smalls, Notorious Big. He was hot. He actually came to a place called the Pulsations. It was in the middle of nowhere. And him, Puffy, and matter of fact, you probably know DJ Stevie Pugh. He was actually the DJ at that time during that concert. And we had a local rap group called Crooks and Villains. Okay. And they opened up the show. Now, Biggie only ended up doing one song because Chester and Philly, they got the fighting down there on the lower level. So that kind of ended the concert quickly. But yeah, Biggie Smalls, Tupac, Busta Rhymes at the time.
Yeah.
That's who we were listening to, or at least who I was listening to.
Well, it looks like y'all weren't shortchanged with the music, because I still have Dear Mama ringing in my head at the senior cookout, as we had our senior cookout at Mays High School during senior week. So that was real big Tupac and indeed Biggie and all of those good rappers back then. We have some folk who've chimed in. Sister Sylvia Harris, who I know to be my mother, says, good evening, gentlemen. Glad to have you. Stephen Levon, class of 0202. So we thank you.
Yeah, Rev, Steve is we actually were sitting in front of him and his lovely wife during one of the games at home.
Okay.
Right behind us. So I forget what game that was. Probably like the 2 games ago, maybe.
Yeah, I vaguely remember because you were having a conversation with them right before the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember. Now, maybe this is not my mother. I don't know, because I'm not accustomed to this profile pic. But she said Dolores Williams, 1981. So I don't know if somebody's watching. I don't know.
No, that's her. I think that's her. I think she changed. I seen that this morning.
Okay, well, you obviously got a better grip on my mother's Facebook page than I do.
I'm just here, man.
I got you. All right, so Dolores Williams, 1981. I guess she told you to represent for her. If this is mom, okay, whatever. And Steve was validating that was him. All right. All right, David Ducasse. I guess I said that right.
That's Mr. Bob.
All right, Mr. Bob, good evening to you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Steven is saying that was the D-Town East game. Okay. Yeah. All right, that was that playoff game. Oh, okay. I see what's going on. And this is what we'll do in just a sec. I see what's going on. She also said Dolores Hunt, 2003. So let's take a quick pause because we want to show some love. Today is the birthday of Councilwoman Arvilla Hunt. So let's show Councilwoman Arvilla Hunt some birthday love.
Absolutely.
Happy birthday, Sister Arvilla Hunt. And I just left her home, and I left my mother at her home for her birthday celebration. So they must be watching the show during Sister Hunt's celebration. Okay. And Dolores Williams, if I'm saying it right, happens to be the grandmother of Nasir Williams, one of the star guards for the Coatesville boys basketball team. So now I understand what Sister Harris is doing. She's representing all of the folk who are at the birthday party or watching the game. And Arvilla Hunt, 1977. That was a great year. You were born. Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. I was born that year as well. So thank you, Sister Harris, for representing for everybody who's watching the show at Sister Hunt's birthday dinner. And I'm looking forward. I must admit, Mr. Grubb, I'm looking forward to this show ending because there's some good food at that birthday celebration.
Hey, shout out to Nasir's grandmom too, man, because that's one of our mutual favorite players on the team. So
no doubt about it. No doubt about it. Along with his grandfather, brother Darryl, who I just got through talking with maybe about 30, 40 minutes ago. He was trying to pick my brain about what happened in that game where they lost to Conestoga. But, it happens, and we'll talk a little bit about it in just a few minutes. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Please hit the share button, like and share. Let somebody know what you're watching on today on the 610 Seville Sports Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And again, we welcome you to the Seville Sports Mentality Show. With that being said, we're going to push this train on, and we want some respect to some Seville athletes who had some great accomplishments this past week. As we call this segment of our show, Red Raiders Respect. So we're going to play this video who we're showing some respect to, and then we'll give them additional shout out after the video. So let's give some Red Raiders respect. And here we go. Big ups as we show Red Raiders respect to Micaiah Detail. Congratulations on her first team All Chestnut 2025 for girls basketball. Honorable mention, Red Raiders respect goes to Nasira Towles, junior guard. Also to freshman Milan Bryant. Also, we want to show some Red Raiders respect to the Coatesville boys basketball team who earned the number 3 seed in the PIAA District 1 as they take on, or rather go to the state when the first round matchup on Saturday. Also, as we're talking about the boys basketball, Amon Folks, senior guard, Red Raiders respect as he scored his 1,000th basketball point. Also, Red Raiders respect to the girls track team, the 4x200 team, the 4x400 team, both qualified to the state for the state at Penn State, and also the triple jumper also qualified for the state championship as well. So Red Raiders respect to them. Also, Red Raiders respect goes to junior Rami Ayub, and if I pronounced that wrong, please forgive me. Finished in 5th place for the 250-pound classification wrestling in the PIAA Southeast Regionals, and he's advancing to the state championship. Also, Red Raiders respect to senior Andrej Shuznik, finished 5th in the 121-pound division for the PIAA Southeast Regionals. He's advancing to the state championships. And Red Raiders respect to senior James Weldon, who finished 3rd in the 172-pound division in the PIAA Southeast Regionals, and he's advancing to the state championship as well. So big ups and Red Raiders respect to all the Red Raiders who did some wonderful things this past week. Anything you want to say in regards to the Red Raiders respect?
Yes, sir. I want to give a shout out to Anthony A.J. Holgard Jr., point guard for Vanderbilt, Coatesville, born and raised. They knocked off number 15 Missouri this weekend in overtime, 97-93. So shout out to AJ. Keep doing what you're doing, and we're pulling for you, buddy.
All right. And if you follow Coach Tootie, he had a wonderful Facebook post rather this morning, highlighting some of the Coatesville guards who, or rather guards who are from Coatesville who play college basketball. So if you follow Coach Tootie, go ahead and check out that Facebook post showing some love to guards who are playing Division I basketball from the city of Coatesville. Good evening to you, Stephen Jackson. So glad to have you on our show. And Willie Dicker is watching as well. All right. We're glad to have all of you watching on today, and we hope that you will stay tuned in, for we have a very special guest who will join us at the top of the hour. We want to show some love to Jay Oliver, former Coatesville baseball player who went on and played big-time D1, and he's going to share with us his journey from Coatesville and beyond. So that will take place at the top of the hour at 7 o'clock. So feel free to share, like, and especially if you know Jay or you know of somebody who needs to know Jay, go ahead on, tell them about Jay being on our show on today. All right, as we move on, let's give this update on the Coatesville's boys basketball team. We know that they wound up earning 3rd place in the PIAA District 1. We were hoping that they would win the districts, but they came up a little short against Conestoga. So let's start right there. Both of us were at that game. What were your thoughts about the loss that the boys took at the hands of Conestoga?
Oh man, it was tough, man. It was tough for the fans to see, and it was tough for the team and the coaching staff to have to go through. But one thing I saw after the game, that after we were interviewing them, was that you could see the disappointment, but you didn't see anybody that was like really, really down. They were automatically looking toward the next game. And those games happen, man. Those games happen. Conestoga they were a good team throughout the season, but to think that they would end up ultimately winning the District 1 title, things happen. It was looking like it was going to be Coatesville versus Lower Merion in the district title, but it didn't happen. But it was a good game. I mean, they had an opportunity to win the game, but sometimes that's the way the chips fall sometimes, Rev.
Yeah, and they, played a real tough game. The point guard from Conestoga, got to give big ups to him. He played a very solid game. He willed his team to victory, made some key baskets. I'm still thinking about that three-point shot that bounced from the side when the game was tied after Coatesville made that run to tie the game. And then also I'm still lamenting over that three-pointer that was hit almost from half court right before the half. Because when that went through the net, I'm not even going to lie, I said, it seems like it's going to be one of those days.
Man, listen, I was upset with myself because I didn't catch it on film. Because, somebody shooting a half-court shot, you're not thinking they're going to – it went in. But Coastal came back and they had cut the score to 2. And that came up. It came to be a big shot, man, because Coastal ended up losing by 4 points.
Yeah, so that three-pointer right before the half, and then also the three-pointer that bounced to give Conestoga the lead for the rest of the game. Those were 6 points, and I know Coach Tootie actually referenced that second three-point shot in terms of how that was a game changer, and it's those kind of buckets that sometimes determines who wins or loses. The thing that was really disheartening about that three-pointer right before the half is the guy stole the ball because we tried to make a cross court out of bounds pass.
You know the rules.
It is like, man, the worst thing that could happen happened. Not only do they get the steal, but they get the three-pointer on top of that. And, I'll give Coatesville credit because they could have allowed that to linger over halftime into the third quarter, and that could have caused them to be dejected, but they still played hard and they still fought to the very end. And, I want to give big ups to Larry Brown. He really played tough in the middle. And, during that interview, as you referenced it earlier, you could just tell how much Larry wanted it in particular. For Larry, literally during his interview, was brought to tears. Just to see the passion and the heart that he had for that loss just spoke volumes. And then, I really want to say I admire Amon Folks because during that game is when he scored his 1,000th point. And when I interviewed him and I started off the interview about his huge feat, he started talking about the team and started critiquing his own play where he didn't feel like he played up to par. And they said the team didn't really do what needed to be done for that game. And then I had to kind of say that was admirable, but let's talk about your 1,000th point. And he went on to say it. And, we see that he has definitely developed as he's been a guard for Coach Tootie. He's played for Coach Tootie all 3 years that Coach Tootie has been the head coach. And he shared in that interview that when he got to Coatesville, he was not necessarily looked upon as a scorer. And we see that his game has evolved through the 3 years that he has played, and now a huge accomplishment that he accomplished with scoring that 1,000th point. Anything you want to add as we talk about Conestoga, as we wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. Big ups to Nasir, man, or not Nasir, Amon. Like you said, it's not easy to score 1,000 points in a high school career. I mean, you have to play some years, and if you're not a prolific scorer, it's tough to do. There's kids nowadays that they're celebrating their 1,000 points, in the postgraduate school, and there's nothing wrong with that because some of them might only played, 2 years varsity. So that just shows you how tough it is to score 1,000 points, let alone looking up at that banner and seeing that Jameer Brick has scored over 2,000 points and is the all-time leading scorer and beat out Tootie, who's also scored over 2,000 points. How does that happen? You have to be a great player. And one more thing, Rev. I can respect the seniors, Amon, Nasir, even Larry Brown, he's a junior. They all took accountability for that loss. And that's very respectable, man.
Yeah, and you have a good team when your veterans are the ones who are basically taking a self-evaluation of themselves first,
Oh, yeah.
because they don't place the blame on anybody before they look at themselves. And that is really one of the greatest attributes that I see about this team, the accountability. And it's self-accountability before team accountability. And I really want to applaud them for that. Before we go over to the Lower Marion game, Jesse Dralick, what's going on? He says, this is a great show. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for the love. I think I know this lady right here, Sister Gloria Robinson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And also, Sister Barbara Talaferro is tuning in. So glad to have her tuning in as well. We greatly appreciate you all tuning in. And while we took that pause, if you don't mind, please like the Seville Sports Network Facebook page and subscribe to the network YouTube channel. We will greatly appreciate it. Now, it was so, I guess it's funny now, but the guys, I guess, were so locked in, and even Coach Tootie was so locked in to advancing in the district that everybody, to a degree, forgot that there was a playback game on Friday.
All of them.
I mean, because when you sent the text on Friday, I was out of town at the CIAA tournament because I'm under the impression there's not another game until Saturday coming up for the state. And then all of a sudden, no playback game at Lower Marion. So you can see how much they were focused on winning the district, but it didn't happen the way they thought. And nevertheless, there was a game against Lower Marion at Lower Marion. I watched the stream, but you were there live. So I'll yield to you to give your commentary first about what you saw at that game.
Yeah, I had no clue there was a game on Friday until I saw it online or something happened where I found out, and then I'm letting you guys know. And I did see it. I did see Larry's dad mention it. And he said that, it's all right. We got a game Friday. And I'm thinking, well, maybe he mistyped it, or I was like, they don't have a game Friday, but I didn't say anything. Well, he was right. They had a game. But yeah, that Lower Marion game, it really wasn't. Coastal came in and handled their business. They came in with a chip on their shoulder, especially Larry Brown, the third, played the yeoman's type of game under the boards. He scored 11 points. Colton Hiller played a great game, and also Amount Folks. He bounced back and had also a great game. So Coastal ended up winning the game. Like I said, it really wasn't in doubt. They handled Lower Marion. I was surprised. I thought it would have been more of a competitive game, seeing that Lower Marion was, even though Coastal beat them earlier in the season, I thought they would have came out and had a more competitive game. And it determined who was going to face powerhouse Roman Catholic in the next round, in the first round of the state playoffs. I mean, not saying that you're scared or anybody, but hey, let's if we can take a easier game, I'll say it, an easier game, I'll take it. To move as far as you can in the tournament.
No doubt, no doubt. You want to always take the easiest path that you can take.
Yeah, absolutely.
So ain't no harm in wanting the easiest path. But in addition to the names that you mentioned, also Nasir Williams was on fire.
Yes.
He was hitting those threes and driving to the lane and ones. And just to go down the list of the scorers, Amon Folks had 22, Nasir had 17, Colton Hiller had 12, Larry Brown had 11. And one of the surprises in that game and helping us to look forward to the future is one Jaleel Tedford, the sophomore who came up from JV, played, I think, his second game during the tournament. He scored 6 points, and you can see that this kid is going to be special, especially when he has the opportunity to play alongside Colton Hiller and Larry Brown next year. So what do you have to say about Jaleel Tedford?
I just go back to the game when we first saw him not too long ago, and we're in the back doing our interviews, and he's walking by, and asked him what his name was and what his last name was, and you wrote his name down or put it in your phone, because we knew that where this kid come from. You know, he Tootie just inserted him in there, and he wasn't scared. He plays his motion is so he has a good flow to him for being a sophomore, and to be put in those positions during this time of the year during the playoffs. I mean, you got to have some you know what I mean to do that. So his 6 points he scored, that wasn't really the biggest impact that he had on that game. It was his defense, just being smart with handling the ball, and just knowing where to be at on the court. That's what impressed me. So yeah, I mean, it's funny how Tootie finds these guys to contribute to the team that haven't really been playing all that much all year. Yeah. And they come in and they play like they've been playing all year. Yeah. Max Hiller, Jalil. I mean, guys like that, man. Coatesville's fortunate to have players like that on the team. It's going to take them far in the tournament.
Yeah, and one of the things I will say is that it's wonderful when the coach has a good pulse of his team. Because when Max evolved, he called it before Max evolved. And then obviously by inserting Jalil Tedford in, he had a good pulse that it was his time. So big ups to Coach Tootie as we wrap up this segment and we prepare for our Seaville Legacy Sports interview. We know that the team plays Allen basketball at Ross Kershey Gym on this Saturday. And I hate that I'm not going to be able to be there because I have a preaching engagement in Oklahoma. But nevertheless, give us like a 1-minute summary of your point of view about this game that the boys will be playing on Saturday in the first round of the state tournament.
So Coatesville's coming in at 22-6. William Allen, when I played, it was called Allentown Allen. So now they just go by Allen. You know, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know, but they're coming in at 15-10. So I'm not going to say this is going to be an easy game because at this point, to make the state playoffs, you have to be a competitive team. So, but I truly feel that Coatesville should be able to handle this team and move on to the second round.
All right, and our network coordinator, Kim Reiner, said, make sure y'all tell the time, 1:00 p.m. on Saturday.
We did. Yeah. You said it, Rev.
I thought I did, but hey, she said she didn't hear it, then I'll say it again. All right. As we continue on, it is now time for our Seaville Sports Legacy interview. And we have one of the former baseball players of Coatesville who went on to play big-time college baseball. And he has gone on to be able to live a good life, also has a wonderful story about the highs and lows of his life. And we're glad that he's decided to spend some time on the Seaville Sports Mentality Show with Mr. Grubb and myself. If you don't mind, Seaville Sports Mentality family, can you show some love by sending up some hearts, sending up some likes for Jay Oliver? What's going on, brother Jay? Welcome to the Seaville Sports Mentality Show, and we are grateful that you have allotted some time to share with us on today. Mr. Grubb, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us why it was essential for us to interview one Jay Oliver?
Jay is just one of those special kind of guys, man. You know, I met Jay in middle school, and he'll tell the story of, you know, being afraid, you know, coming in to this town from where he came from, and he just has a great personality, man, and he's all about the kids, he's all about his community and just giving back. So his story needs to be told, and everybody's want to hear it.
All right, well, let's get him to tell his story. You got it, sir.
Hey, so Jay, listen, some people may not know that you weren't born in Coatesville. You were born in Iowa, And what what brought you to Coatesville? What brought your family to Coatesville? And how would you describe your experience growing up in Coatesville?
Well, first, let me thank both of you guys for the opportunity to sit here with you guys, because it does mean a lot. And the title of your show is very appropriate, because there is a mentality that Coatesville has, right? Whether you live in that community or not, if you went there, you understand what it means to have that Coatesville mentality. And I try to coach that just within the where I coach now at Twin Valley, which is in the backyard of Coatesville, right? So, but to answer your question, Levi, it was my dad took a church right there on 4th Ave in Coatesville Bible Fellowship. And it was eye-opening coming from Iowa, where I think the school literally had like 200 kids in the entire school. So that was unique. But when I got here, I remember coming into the classroom, and just everybody embraced me, right? But it was definitely a culture shock going from one classroom that was the size of basically of your entire grade. But it was very warm, and I was embraced. But it was a great culture right away, and the sports were really good, and I love all sports. So that's really what I fell in love with right away. The passion that everyone at that age in 7th grade had passion for sports and each other, right? There was no one trying to be better than anybody, right? That's what I remember. We're all like one big family, especially at Gordon.
So Jay, you shared something with me when we were talking on the phone last week that I forgot, because as we get older, your memory starts to go a little bit. You forget people's names, you forget things that happen. And you said to me, when you came into the class, and correct me if I'm wrong, I sat next to you, and that's how we became friends, or I just befriended you.
Yeah, you made a joke. You and I had made the same joke, I think, all through up until our senior year when we graduated, right? But you always kept it light. And I remember not knowing anybody and trying to compete, whether it was basketball, like in the background in your picture right now, I can name every one of those guys on that team and still talk to them, right? In some shape, size, or form. But yeah, you always made a joke when I came in a little bit nervous or just moving here. You were always cracking a joke that made me laugh, and that started the day out always right? And that's one thing I try to do this day. I always try to start my day out right, and that's I'm praying, right? Do my devotional in the morning, and then I get right with the Lord, and that starts my day. I mean, that's really the same mentality, right? So you got to have a smile, or else it's gonna eat you up right away. Because life is tough.
Definitely agree with that. Hey, so when you were growing up, who was the major influence that kept you balanced as a kid and growing into a young man?
From a friend network, I would say it was you, Chris Pitcherella, some of those guys that kept me grounded. Also, it was Miss Tuckloff and Mrs. Pryor were also influences on me. I remember getting frustrated in school, and they would always help me out and just allow me to see the common sense behind everything. But I would say from an impact, it was definitely Skug. Skug would always take the time, no matter what I was doing in high school, and always come up and say, "Hi, how you doing?" Like, he always knew me as I wanted to be the baseball guy. And he always knew that, whether it was playing soccer, playing basketball, he always knew to say the right thing, even in gym class, right? He that guy had such an influence on me. And I don't know if I actually ever told him recently, but I remember telling him years ago of how much of an impact he had on me, just through being him, right? And that's what being real is, and he defined that through his actions. So
it's not funny, but it's just a great thing how all of the guests that we have on, they have some type of connection to Jim Skuggy Smith, and they tell their story on how he touched their lives in some kind of way. And it doesn't matter where you came from, what kind of what color you are, or what your culture or your background. He had some type of influence on your life. So that was great to hear, Jason. So Jay, you mentioned your dad, Mark Oliver, correct?
Yep. Dr. Mark Oliver.
Yeah, he was very influential in the town of Coatesville when you were younger. I remember he used to have a segment on the radio show WCOJ in the morning. And what was it, like a morning devotional or something like that?
Yeah, it was a morning devotional, and they would just talk about what the churches in the area were doing and what the leaders were doing in order to help the town, right, in the city. And he still talks about that, right? And he still does the same thing no matter where he lives, right? So he was living in Boston, had a church similar to Coatesville, and then he just retired last year and lives in Hanover, Pennsylvania. But he was the one that really allowed my family and I and my brothers and everything to really just be themselves and to focus on the relationships that you have right in front of you, right? I can honestly say that we never tried to be someone we weren't, right? And I think there's a lot of those times where I look back on my career and things like that, and I'm humbled to have an example like my father, where I didn't have to like try to please anybody or anything like that. And he just said, you just keep working hard, you'll be okay. Right. And sometimes we go off track, right? And sometimes those obstacles come, but he never tried to take the obstacles out. He always just tried to tell me about them. So
I was going to ask you, what was it like growing up as a pastor's child? I know, remembering being around you, I never told you this, but we kind of looked at you in a certain manner, like you had to act a certain kind of way because your dad was, a pastor. What was that like?
Yeah.
Was there any pressure, or?
I would say there was pressure a little bit because there is, and Rev, I know that you know this, but when you're a pastor, the political part of the church sometimes can really beat you up, right? Mm-hmm. Actually, it can. It beats everybody up, and I saw that firsthand with my father. But it's a testament to those folks when it gets political. If you can put that to the side and you're very genuine, I think that's what really, being a Christ follower is all about, right? And he instilled that in us, right? Because we didn't have much money growing up. We didn't have the nicest houses. But I tell you what, there wasn't one time where I ever felt that I needed anything. Mm-hmm. But also because of the fact that he did have a higher standard, and I respected him as a leader in the community.
Amazing, man. Amazing story, man. Let's get on the sports that you played as you was going through Coatesville School District. What sports did you play? Obviously, you played baseball, and we see you in the background, that little guy in the back playing basketball for Gorham. What other sports did you play?
I played soccer. I played some football in my younger days, but mostly just baseball, basketball, and that was really it. The soccer was good, but I just did that to stay in shape because I wasn't good like JT Dorsey and the Ryan Permanis of the world. Those guys were good. I just like to kick the ball around. But baseball was it. But in Coatesville, I remember. You remember the Coatesville League, the junior league, Levi? It was
Babe Ruth,
the youth league. Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember Tiffany McInerney?
Yes.
She was the one. I still am hung up on this. She beat me in the free throw contest when we were in 5th grade or 7th grade, and I still can't get over it to this day. She went 10 for 10. I went 8 for 10, and I still can't get over that to this day.
Hey, Rev,
she owned me.
Rev, there's a reason why she beat him. She was actually an integral part of that 1994 state championship game or state championship team. So, yeah, I mean, he's telling the truth. She whipped his butt. Yep. Hey, Jay. So you said you played soccer, man, because your footwork was horrible, man.
Oh, it's terrible. Terrible. That's why I didn't last long, and that's probably why Scud yelled at me a lot in those younger years.
Mm-hmm.
With some of that soccer stuff.
But he would say, "If I stop yelling at you, that means I don't care."
Yep.
I use that to this day. I use that line when I go up to kids and say, "Listen, the moment I'm not getting on you is probably the moment you should probably be done playing the sport."
Yeah. So So out of all the coaches, we're talking about coaches and stuff. Out of all the coaches, who had the most impact on your game or in any sport you played?
I would say that there's two. One would be my father because he always did coach me, but Mr. Pitcherella, Ron Pitcherella, had a big influence on me growing up. Always wanted me to be better, right? And he would tell me exactly, how to do that. And and obviously he had a pharmacy in town, so the people knew who he was, and he was well respected. So I always wanted to respect my elders, but he was one of the ones that kind of motivated me the most, and I think his son Chris as well also motivated me. But I also got to give credit to Zig and all those guys growing up, because they established that Coatesville mentality that, like, we're going to fight no matter what. There were always teams that were probably more athletic and talented than us, but we didn't give up. And that's what I look at. Like, every Coatesville team that I watch right now, they do the same thing. They may not have the most talent, but man, do they fight to the end. And I think that's getting to be a lost art out there in youth sports.
Yeah,
right.
That's
like
definitely
that play to the end mentality, that Coatesville, I'm going to get you type mentality. And I try to instill it in my guys out here, and it's just different. But I truly believe that it gives you an edge when you're playing, especially in high school. It gives you an edge. You better take that edge because it's competitive out there.
I think that mentality. Well, I know that mentality still exists in Coatesville, and the reason why it still exists is because those kids back in Skoogie's era and Zig, and Zig is still coaching, Kershey, Renee Talley, those coaches, they instilled that into the programs because it was instilled in them.
Yep.
Because most of those teachers that coach, they were from Coatesville. So it was a continuing cycle. And now you have Zig is still coaching, but you have his sons coaching, you have Tootie, you have people like that are still pushing that narrative and those values about Coatesville sports. So yeah, it's still alive and well. And I had the opportunity to stop down at the baseball field last Wednesday and visit Zig and Lance. And Rev, you remember when he mentioned that after every practice, he expects all of his players to go up to his coaches and shake their hand and give them thanks. Yeah, and I witnessed it. I witnessed it with my own eyes, and it was amazing. It was just amazing, man. Every single one of them did.
Yep. Wow. And that was a precedent set at a young age for us, right? Like, there was another coach, and I saw him just chime in. That was Mr. Fisher, because he coached us in 7th and 8th grade, and I'll tell you what, there wasn't there. Paying attention to details, what Coach Fisher was all about, and I'll never forget that either, because he was really ingrained in the details, and that's a big thing these days too.
He's retired now, but he's still in the stands at every basketball game this season I've seen him at. He's there still supporting. Last question, Jay.
Yep.
For me.
Yep.
What was the most memorable moment you experienced while playing Coatesville baseball?
I would say in '94 we won the Chesmont, and then in '95 we won it on a Jason Rickenball home run at Westchester East. And I'll never forget that game, because you're a team when, especially in baseball, because baseball is one of those sports where I'm sure you guys know, but like you lose the game, but if you go 4 for 4, you're still pretty happy, right? like so like you're like, I'm good, you know what I mean? So you always have that to play on. But when Rickenball hit this home run, it didn't matter what we went for. You know what I mean? Like it was probably the one of the most special games I've ever been a part of, just because of how close we were as a team, and that's the culture that the player-led culture that Zig instilled in us. That's what it was. And when he hit that home run, it was a great feeling. 1995, right? Like that was unbelievable game. Like I'll never forget it. I couldn't breathe either because I was always the guy on the bottom of the pile, so I couldn't breathe, and I remember that.
Got it, Rev.
All right, Jay, you've shared some great things. I want to go back to the baseball real quickly in Coatesville. What position did you play?
I was first baseman. First baseman. I played some outfield too, Rev, but I was a first baseman. I just like to hit.
Okay. So were there any first basemen who played Major League Baseball that really got your attention, which caused you to maybe play first base?
Yeah, growing up, I really liked like Don Mattingly and John Olerud. Remember, John Olerud was the guy that wore the hard helmet because he had a brain aneurysm.
Mm-hmm.
I really like those guys because they played defensively really well, and I always wanted to do that. Right, like that. One of the things I wanted to strive was like I wanted to pick every baseball down there. I wanted to get every ball and never make an error. Right, and that was my goal. So that I would say those are the two guys that I really looked up to, and some of the younger guys probably listening don't even know who those two guys are, but they were smooth. Right, they were just smooth as ice down there. So it was always fun to watch them.
Yeah, I used to be a big baseball person. I actually played in high school, and Don Mattingly was playing for the Yankees at that time, and then John Olerud played for the Toronto Blue Jays. My guy at that time was Keith Hernandez.
No, he had the best mustache for years. For sure.
I used to mimic his batting style. Because I lived in New York during the 80s when the Mets were really good and when they won that World Series in 86. So you had me go through a moment of nostalgia when you mentioned Don Mattingly as well as John Olerud. Now, you did mention Mark McGwire. He was pretty big then. Now, he was never known for his defense, but we know he was part of the Bash Brothers tandem.
Yeah, he was. He was. I mean, if you still look at the way that he hit, how far he hit those balls, and he was good, don't get me wrong. Because I have been asked that question in other interviews, whether it's local, whatever, about like, what do you think about the steroid era? And I'm like, to be honest with you, I don't care about it. Like, I don't look at it one way or the other because I think you still have to hit the ball, right? Because that's the hardest thing to do. But man, could Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and those guys, could they hit a ball? And it just sounded different.
So as we get ready to move beyond Coatesville, give us an idea of what some of your stats look like, especially in your senior year.
My senior year, I was probably, my junior and senior year were probably my best years. And I don't actually even remember a lot of the stats that I had. But I know it was definitely, my batting average was up there and home runs were definitely up there. But I remember specifically driving in a lot of RBIs because Ryan Permane and Chris and those guys, they were always on base. Matt Hostetler was always getting on base. We had tons of guys that were always on base and we could also play defense. So I would say my stats wise, it was a team mentality. So I don't even remember what my batting average stuff was. Had to been pretty good because I got letters to get recruited. So I just don't remember what they were.
That leads me to ask this next question. Who were some of the teams that recruited you?
The main ones I remember were mostly down south because I really wanted to go down south. So like Clemson, Louisiana Tech, those were some of the ones that were recruiting me. But all of them said the same thing. They're like, Jay, we want you, but you're not going to play to your junior year, right? Like they were just stacked and they were very transparent. So I chose to go to Liberty first because it was a Christian school, but their baseball program was really good. And I knew that the coach there, he was old school guy, but really understood how to develop guys too. And I wanted to go there. So I chose Liberty and it was a good experience, but that's why I chose it, just because I knew that the experience was going to be good. And the coaching class was really solid.
So your father being a pastor had no bearing on that decision?
Mm-mm. It didn't. He wanted me to go wherever allowed me to go, and I wanted to keep it close so they could get to some games. But Rev, you know how it is. It's hard to travel as a pastor and try to get to your kids' games in college. But they made as much as they could. But that it was a great opportunity just to play at that level. So.
Yeah, and there's nothing like having your parents in the stands. You know, I was blessed to play in Atlanta when I played college basketball for Morehouse College, so I was right around the corner from my parents. And for 4 years, my parents went to about 6. They only missed 6 home or away games my entire 4-year career. So that's one of the reasons why I'm grateful. And I had to throw that out there since my mother's watching and especially since you mentioned about your parents getting to the game.
Yep.
You mentioned that you went to Liberty University, but in reading the questions and preparing for this interview, we know that you did not stay at Liberty. So what happened at Liberty which caused you to ultimately come back to the Keystone State and play college baseball at Pittsburgh University?
It was a couple things, but one was they didn't have the major that I wanted to get into. Was like international business, hospitality business, which is what I'm in now. But also I felt it was a little strict, even growing up in a pastor's house, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I transferred to Pitt. Also, it was a little bit more affordable to my family and myself because it was in state, and I got to trim that bill down a little bit, so that was good. Because Liberty being a private school, they gave me a good amount of money, but it was still out of state. So,
and Liberty's in Lynchburg, Virginia, right?
It is.
Yeah. So, how would you compare Liberty baseball versus Pittsburgh baseball?
I would say both the programs are similar. I would say Pitt probably has a little bit more competitive schedule because it was in the Big East back then, which is basically the same thing as the ACC now. Definitely more competitive, and I would say that you would probably get more people at the games. Plus, we played a lot of our home games at Three Rivers Stadium at Pitt. So that would bring a good amount of crowd in. It was good for recruits. But the reason I chose to transfer was a majority of those things. But I don't regret it. I wish I could go back to the younger me, right, and kind of walk through, all the kind of prerequisite questions, right. But but the Lord teaches you in different ways, and that I'm glad with the decisions that I made because I enjoyed playing at Pitt too because I learned a lot there.
Now, did they know that you were coming to Pitt to play baseball, or did you walk on?
No, Pitt knew. So it's no different than how the transfer portal is. Like you kind of stay in touch with the coaches that were recruiting you. So I reached out at that time. It was Mark Jackson and Jeff Minnick, and they said, "Yep, love to have you. Come on over." Now, the transfer portal is different now, but when I told my coach, he thought I meant the year before. I left literally right at Christmas break and didn't come back, and he was not very happy with me. So
wow,
that was and I felt bad because he was a great man, and he didn't understand, I guess, and that was a breakdown in communication. So word of advice to you young players out there: make sure you fully communicate, because sometimes that can lead to a reputation that you don't want to have, and you may never know that.
Now, when you get to Pitt, did you have immediate success on the diamond, or did you gradually start having success as you continue to play through the years?
No, when I got there, I worked hard all the time, right? I was always in the cages. I would say I didn't work as hard in my schooling as I probably should have, but I worked hard at the cages, in the weight room, all those things. Defensively, I was always working. So I ended up playing right away coming into my sophomore year. And it was definitely a challenge at first because the year before they just went to the Regional World Series and lost to Oklahoma State in the College World Series. So there was kind of a high standard that they wanted with bringing some guys in, right? So they wanted to get the top tier guys. So it was always competitive. Like you were competing almost every practice to get into the starting lineup. Right. And nothing was handed to me. Right. Like you always had to work hard, and at practice, you always had to perform.
So what was your greatest moment playing Pittsburgh baseball?
I'll give you a situation that I wouldn't call it a greatest moment for me, but it's one of my best memories. Is we were playing in Three Rivers, and I faced Brad Lidge, who was at Notre Dame at the time. Right. And we all know who Brad Lidge is for the Phillies and one of the best closers. My first at bat versus him in Three Rivers was a bomb. I hit a bomb off of him, right? Wow. And it was great because we were like on cloud nine. That was the first inning. Well, my next three at bats, I continued to get smoked and didn't even touch a ball. So I remember like going up on such a high and then leaving that game fully depressed because I didn't repeat it. And that's baseball, right? So I always tell the guys that I coach these days, I'm like, guys, you got to understand that baseball is a game of failure, right? Because if you go 3 for 10, you're really good, right? But if my kids come home with 3 out of 10 on a test, it is not going to be good for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Baseball is definitely a sport that humbles you.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned, there's no other sport where you can have a 333 average and that's solid.
Yeah.
So that's interesting take that you brought forth. So we need to let the folk know that you were just not a solid baseball player at Pitt, but you were in contention to be player of the year against one Pat the Bat Burrell, who wound up playing for the Philadelphia Phillies. Tell us what that experience was like being, or rather going head to head when it comes to being player of the year in the Big East with Pat Burrell.
Well, everyone knew who Pat was, right? No one knew who I was. So that was kind of like, that was more geared towards, I had the advantage, I thought, right? Just going out there and doing my job. And then when the Big East interviewed us about like, hey, you guys are both, I think we were both batting at that time, like 4 something, right? Into like the first 15 games. And all the numbers were very, very similar. But then as soon as that article hit, it felt like something changed. And I don't know what it was, but it felt like it. I went on I think 0 for 15.
Wow.
I went 0 for 15 immediately after that. And I end up like I was stopping the bleeding, but I never pulled out to where my name was relevant again. Right. Like, and it was still good numbers, right? Still solid, still batting over 300 with good numbers, but he stayed up until like, I think he ended up batting like 415 that year. Right. And I just kind of dropped, and that was really humbling for me. And I don't know if that started a different outlook on me, but I kind of pinpoint that to where when I go back and reflect on it, of where I don't know if I lost the kind of drive to be a really good baseball player, but I felt like I started working a little bit less.
Do you feel, and since you're a Christian guy, I'll go there because I've had similar moments where in sport, as in coaching, in particular, I used to coach, and my goal was to be a college basketball coach. I had a chance to coach on the high school level, had some success as assistant basketball coach, but there was a moment where my head coach got ejected from a game. I helped the team win that game. Then the next 2 games, I had to coach by myself, and we lost both of those games by 3 points. And I felt at that time that was the God moment in my life where God said, I allowed you to play or coach basketball, but that is not going to be what you do for the rest of your life. So looking back, do you think that was your God moment, by God saying, listen, I allowed you to have some success, but now I'm pulling back because I have something else that I have planned for your life?
Yeah, I would say that was probably him talking to me. I don't think I listened right away. Right? Like I kept trying to grind and do things my own way, and kind of thought that it's okay. I just kind of got to get over this. But the more that I started hitting less, like, because I used to get up at 5:30 in the morning every morning at college and just hit 100 swings, 200 swings a day. I started stopping that. I started like going out, hitting the bar at times, probably when I probably shouldn't have, right? All those things that I shouldn't have done, knowing full well that wasn't the right decision. So I don't regret any of that, right? Because I learned a lot, but I would say that's probably my moment where I go, okay, I'm probably not going to be the baseball player that I thought I once was. So
during that time, were you, before you had that drought, as they call it in baseball, when you go 15, or slump, there you go. Were you being pursued as a major league prospect?
Yeah, so Pitt and at that time Duquesne and all the other schools that were in the area, they always had like a pro day every year. So they invited like these. So my sophomore and junior year, I think I filled out like 25 pro scout cards, which means when you fill that many out, that means they're on the radar, right? And they're looking at you. And I remember my junior year playing at one of the scout days, and I think it might have been the Brave scout named Moran. I said, I don't know if this is in me. I just said that real quick, like as a young kid, maybe joking around, and it got back to like a lot of the other guys that my heart wasn't in it, and I think that's pretty much where I said, okay, I'm just gonna finish out my college career. I'm still gonna work hard, but I'm not. I don't think it's for me. So
wow. So now, while you're playing baseball, obviously your major league dreams are starting to dwindle because you don't have the passion that is necessary in order to succeed on the major league level. Where does life take you from there?
So I end up finishing my degree, right, and end up moving to New York after college, and because that's where my family lived, and I took a job there, helping one of my friends run a restaurant just to figure out what I was going to do, and I end up talking to the Long Island Ducks. Which is like an independent league.
Mm-hmm.
One of their players pulled me aside. I don't remember how we met, but it was randomly, and said, "Hey, listen, you should come out." And this was like right after my career. They knew who I was. My pit coaches had sent an email or something over to them, and I went to like one or two of their tryouts, and I still didn't have the passion. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy there named Carr. He played for the Florida Marlins. He was an outfielder. And he pulled me aside. I said, "You should really try this." And I said, "It's not there. My passion's not there." And so I did that. And I said, "You know what? It's definitely not there." So then I started working for my friend of the family restaurant. And then I moved back to Philadelphia, where I started working for Lutheran Children and Family Services. So I automatically was done playing baseball. Ended it. I don't even know where those spikes are from college, where they're at right now. I have no clue. And I started working with kids for Lutheran Children Family Services in Philadelphia. And I met my wife at Pitt, and we were dating, and then the rest is history, just from being done playing baseball.
Wow. So you mentioned your wife. From what I've read, you've been married nearly 20 years. Am I correct?
You are correct.
And you both share 3 beautiful children.
Yep.
So what life lessons has fatherhood and husbandhood, if you will, taught you so far?
I would say the biggest thing is now that I coach more and really want to impact kids in the community that I live in, I can't do it without my wife. I just can't do it. Right? She is such an anchor for our family. And she allows me to do the things that I don't think most people would have opportunity to do, because she's so grounded, but also she cares about what you want to do at the same time, but also it needs to intertwine with the family, right? And that's why I coach, because she drives me to do better. But I also use the same mentality in my work currently, right? Like I manage a good amount of people, and they're fantastic people, but we're all one team, right? And I feel like that's exactly the way that you're supposed to move forward when you're managing people and trying to be a leader. And it doesn't need to be a leader as in president of a company or president of this, but it is because of my wife that I'm able to do those things, and my children motivate me more than they even know.
Looking back over your journey, would you have done anything differently, or are you content with the way things happened?
I say this all the time. I regret not working hard, right? Not working as hard as I should have, when maybe that wasn't the opportunity that I should have. Maybe I misread it, which I probably could have. I don't regret any of the outcome that I have now, right? I don't think I would have met my wife, probably wouldn't have had the kids that I have right now, wouldn't have gone in some of the business routes that I've taken, right? That wouldn't have been there. And I don't regret a single thing, right? Because God's plan is different than our own.
That's facts right there. That's good stuff right there. Before I ask you this last question, and we'll give you a chance to put in a plug about your business since you stated your business several times. So tell us what you do now.
So right now I work for Oracle, which is a big technology company, and it's in the hospitality arena. So my major customers are like Hilton and Marriott and all those, but I get to really build relationships with my customer base, right? And I think when you talk about technology and you talk about like, that doesn't replace the relationships, right? And one of the things that I've noticed is that it does a lot of the times, right? I feel like I love social media and I hate social media all at the same time, right? And I feel like at times we rely on technology way too much. So being able to offer technology, which is a tool, I still love being in the hospitality industry because everybody's still hospitable, right? Like that's the name of the game. And I really enjoy that. So it's a not only is it a career, it's a life plan for me. And I have a great team. I have a great bosses. Like it's really great.
So how does your business life collide with your baseball coaching life?
I run it the same, right? Like I hold my team to have high expectations, but I also want them to be transparent with me. So it's the same thing. Like I hold our team to high standards, but I do the same thing with coaching. And I don't think it's different. And I always love that phrase, work-life balance. I really don't believe that, right? Because I feel like everything is life, right? And you just have to figure out what your priorities are, and you have to tackle them one at a time, right? You can't tackle 5 at a time and expect to be where you need to be. And that took a long time for me to learn, right? But I think through sports, having great mentors that I mentioned before, I think that's what got me to here today.
Last question before I turn it over to Mr. Grubb and also post some of those comments. What advice would you give to a younger baseball player based on what you know now?
I would say fall in love with the ugly stuff, right? Fall in love with the preparation and those things, right? Because if you can do the small things that no one wants to do, it'll make not only your athletic career very strong, it'll make your business and your personal career even stronger. So if you can fall in love with that ugly stuff, right, it'll change your life. And also, the last one is have fun. Yeah. All the high school sports are so fun, and you never get them back, right? Like we have all these travel sports. Levi, you and I talked about this, AAU and all those things. There is no greater pride than putting on that school jersey you play for, that Coatesville jersey, right? Like that you never get that back. So dwell in that moment that you're with. As our Coatesville guys go to take states, enjoy every minute of that game because you won't get it back.
Before Mr. Grubb takes over to end this portion of the interview and then lead us to the next portion, let me just acknowledge some of the people that are watching. Glad to have you, Sister Barbara Bottoms. I think, was this one of your former teachers, Ms. Barbara Talaferro?
Mm-hmm.
She wanted to make sure that you knew that she was tuning in. Nicholas Thomas said, I remember that home run. Quincy Till, one of our former guests, said, my guy. Jay Oliver, Jim LeConte said, played with Jay at Callan, had a good team. Desiree said, Jay is a phone call guy, not a text guy. True. Katie Travers said, great job sharing your light, Jay. Awesome interview with the generous, honest soul. How much are you paying these people, Jay? Please let me know.
She works for me. She's great.
Okay. Kim said, definitely not a text guy. Nicholas Thomas said, leaders create culture. Culture creates behavior. Behaviors produce results. David says, thank you for sharing your life. And Sister Rita Brown from Passtown says, great interview. Hello, Pastor and Mr. Grubb. Mr. Grubb, you can take it over right now.
Hey, Jay, I think I'm feeling special, man, because you respond to my texts. I don't know about these other people, man.
Yeah, but you're quick with the text messages. It's some of those ones where I get like 13 pages that I got to read, and I don't have that kind of time sometimes. Levi, you know what I mean? Hey, real quick, Levi, before we get started.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Rajon Foster scored on the wrong basket 2 times in a row in the game?
Come on, man. Don't put Root out there like that.
I had to throw Rajon out there because I'll never forget that to this day.
Man, listen. Rajon was. It's funny because Rajon was not the most coordinated basketball player, but out of all of us, he was the most athletic.
Yes, he was.
Basketball player. He could jump out the gym, and him and his wife, beautiful wife Leah, they produce some beautiful kids, and one of the kids that they produce is Luca Foster.
Yep.
And he plays for, I believe it's Archbishop Carroll. I don't want to get that wrong.
He's at Carroll. Yep. Oh,
okay.
I follow everyone that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And he's a big prospect in the nation. So we can joke about Root scoring in a wrong basket in the 7th and in the 8th grade and in the 9th grade. He kind of did it every year, but he did a good thing when producing Luca. So. And I'm sure if Root is watching this show, he's getting a kick out of that too. So
if he's not, we're gonna send it to him because I just want him to never forget that.
So
I
Jay,
sure won't.
Yeah, right. So Jay, we do a segment at the end of the show, the end of the interview called Red Raider Rapid Fire.
Yep.
Where we ask you certain questions and you have to respond to those questions with 3 words or less. If you go over 3 words, Rev has this button. It's the mute button. He will mute you. So I want to start off the Red Raider Rapid Fire. Coatesville baseball.
Zig.
You say Jakey?
No, Zig.
Zig. That was the next one. Coach Hal Ziegler.
Lance.
Coach Donnie Lawrence.
Love them.
Chris Pitcherella.
Love him.
Tracy Oliver.
Tough. She's tough.
Jace, Asher, and Genevieve.
Good kids.
Mark Oliver.
Role model.
God.
Savior.
University of Pittsburgh.
Life lessons.
Kim Raynard.
She is, what's the best way to describe her? She is selfless.
That's a good one.
I think she's a selfless person that does a lot of stuff for this community, right? And we're right in your backyard, and it's a Coatesville mentality right there, guys.
Now, I didn't mute you on that one because she's on our staff, so I gave you the liberty to say as much as you want to since she does so much great work for the network.
That's good.
Class of 1995.
Awesome.
I'll throw one more in there for you. Jim Scoogie Smith.
Cultural leader. He is a cultural leader, no doubt.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for coming on, and Rev's going to take it off from here.
Guys, I appreciate you.
We appreciate you. And if you don't mind, before you go, tell us about who you're coaching for. Give a plug for your team.
Yeah, so I coach the baseball team at Twin Valley. We're a smaller school, got quite a few Coatesville population. We're a really good sports program. We just don't have we only graduate 215 to 220 kids a class, so we don't have as much talent as we can pull from. But I'll tell you what, the kids work hard and they're great, great to coach, and they're fun to watch, right? And in a small community, it's kind of hard to really, like you said, Levi, but being a pastor's son, it's kind of hard. You're always in the spotlight because it's such a small town, right? So there's not much else out there other than the sports. So it's a really good community to live out here. And hopefully I can bring that Coatesville mentality as I continue to help grow this program with our coaching staff, because there's another Coatesville guy named Damon Duraca who also coaches with me. And we're trying to bring that Coatesville mentality, that hard nose, let's get it done mentality. So
All right. Thank you so much for putting in that plug. And also, we thank you for your time with us on the Seaville Sports Mentality Show. We thank you so much and good luck to your team this year. And
Appreciate
thank you
it.
so much for sharing
Good
your
job,
story. And we truly appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Good luck on the rest of the show. I love it.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Give it up. Seaville Sports Mentality Show family for Jay Oliver. All right, thank you so much. There's some great comments before I'll ask you to put a bow on this particular interview. Katie said she's a friend, no payment needed. Nicholas Thomas said he's a legend. David said this young man he has Coatesville pride. Kim showing Jay some love by saying thank you. Nicholas, Jay, if you're still watching, said keep in touch. He'll reach out soon. So Sylvia Harris said inspiring interview. Jim LeConte said 95. Nicholas Thomas said dealing with the small class in Potts Grove, trying to instill the Ville mentality. Let's say David said thanks. Desiree said thanks, Jay. A blessing to be a part of the coaching staff. So we obviously see that Jay Oliver reputation precedes itself, and he has so many people who have been inspired by his work. Any closing comments in regards to the interview that we just had with Jay?
Rev, Jay is just another one of those Coatesville alumni, Coatesville not born and bred, but Coatesville people, man. Just that when they come on a show, they have a story to tell, and the story needs to be told. And when people hear it, it touches them. And it also makes it great because we've been out of school, almost 30 years. And a lot of times you lose contact with people. We are providing an alleyway for people to see people like Jay, good people like Jay, and find out what he's doing with his life, what kind of family he has, good or bad. But we care about what happens to these people. So it's just great, man. Every time we get done an interview, my heart is filled up with just joy, because they got an opportunity to share their stories, man. And maybe it might help one person. Maybe it might help the interviewee. So I'm going to close it out with, man, I appreciate everybody watching, and I appreciate all the guests that we've had on so far.
No doubt. And we have to say thank you for allowing us to reach a milestone this past week as a network. We now have over 1,000 followers. So we want to thank everyone who is following or liked 610 the Seaville Sports Network Facebook page. We truly appreciate you, and we've showed our gratitude as Mr. Grubb and I took the time to just do a video just to show how thankful we are. So we ask that you keep on telling people about the network, share this broadcast, share the clips that we send out, because we want to do our part in informing, inspiring, enlightening the Seaville community, and continuing to uplift our young athletes from Coatesville to get the exposure that they need as they are doing some great things in their respective sports. With that being said, let's take a quick pause away from Coatesville and talk about your very favorite basketball player before we do our schoolgism. If you didn't know, Joel Embiid is Levi's favorite player, and he is out for the season. He started the season injured, and he's concluding the season injured. Your thoughts about your guy? I'm going to put you on solo screen so you can wax poetically about how much sorrow you have because Joel Embiid is out the season. If you watched the show before today, you know there's a lot of sarcasm in what I'm saying. Go for it.
Well, first of all, you kind of threw me off with that, my favorite player. I'm like, who's my favorite player? Charles Barkley? And then I caught on and you're talking about Joel Embiid, one of the players I wish the Sixers would have traded a couple years ago. So it comes out that he's done for the rest of the season. they're not sure if there's any surgery that can help what's going on with his knee. Apparently, from my sources that I have, they told me that Joel's knee is bone on bone. There's no cartilage in between. So one day his knee could be feeling great. One day it could swell up like a balloon. So when you have that situation and being over 300 pounds and a gigantic man, that is not good for the rest of your career. Now, I don't understand, because you had to know this, Joel, and the Sixers had to know this, why you would extend this man, extend his contract, and now you owe him over $300 million until 2029. This is ludicrous. You put this franchise back for years. Now I told you, Embiid's a bum. He's a bum. It's not his fault that he's hurt. It's his fault on how he handles the situations. It's his fault on saying negative things about the Philadelphia fans. Yes, Willie Dicker, he's a bum. That's why I call him a bum. I'm not calling him a bum because of the type of man he is. I don't know him personally. I call him a bum because of the way you handled it. You cheated the Philadelphia 76ers fans. You cheated us. Yes, I'm upset. And it's not my favorite player. He's my favorite player to shit. If I had a big car, because he's not going to be able to fit in my truck, I would drive him away from Philadelphia, as far away from Philadelphia as possibly as I could. Yes, Rev, you hit a switch tonight.
Now,
there's nothing you can do about that knee. He's done. He's not. Breaking news. Joel Embiid will never play again. I guarantee you he will never play again. I do not wish that on him. I would rather him be healthy and help the Sixers, but he's not. He's done. Stop playing around. Let's move on. But now it's too late to trade. We can't even trade him.
Yeah.
But you know what's going to save the Sixers?
You're definitely not getting anything back for him.
No, I'm not talking about trading him.
Yeah, you
One
can't.
thing that's going to save the Sixers financially is that there's such a thing as a medical clause where they can
medical retirement.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's going to save them financially and get them off the hook. But what does that do for us? Well, the Philadelphia 76ers fans.
Nothing.
Back in purgatory again.
So there's a serious question that someone is asking. Here's a serious question after you have one of your more classic rants since we've been doing the show. Willie Dicker has this serious question now, and he's about to see how serious you are about your disdain towards Joel Embiid. Are you ready for the question?
I'm ready.
Would you sell him a smash burger?
I would absolutely sell him a smash burger. You know why? Because Michael Jordan once said, Republicans buy Jordans too.
So are you saying bums eat smash burgers too?
They got to eat. They got to eat.
All right. That's good stuff, and not good stuff for the Sixers. And we'll see what they do. We'll see if they go into tank mode, because they're in a very peculiar situation, because if they have a better record or get a draft spot higher than 6, they lose their draft pick to Oklahoma City, which makes things even worse. So do they tank to be in better shape to possibly keep their draft pick, or do they try to win and go into the play-in because they're not too far out of actually qualifying for the play-in tournament? So we'll see, and we'll talk about it as the weeks continue to go, as we are nearing, rather, the NBA playoffs. We always pay homage, or we try to pay homage each week, to a person that's dear to us, Deacon, to me, Coach, to Mr. Grubb, Scoogie Smith, and we try to provide a Scoogism for the week. And Mr. Grubb has provided this Scoogism from Coach/Deacon Scoogie. And the Scoogism is this: nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. What does this mean to you, Mr. Grubb?
So, like I said before in past Scoogisms, there are some Scoogisms that I have from old texts from Scoogie that I use, and then there are Scoogisms that I look for to kind of describe what the week was like or what I experienced during the week. So nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible. So I'm equating that to the Coatesville boys basketball team. Just because they did not play in the District 1 6A championship game this past week, they didn't get down. They didn't give up. They still knew what their ultimate goal was or is, and that's to compete and ultimately win a state championship title for Coastal Area School District. And they never say, well, maybe, well, possibly. They always say the main thing is the main thing. We're focused. We're about winning the state title. And Tootie said it in the last interview. That's what they're focused on. One game at a time. So nothing is impossible because the word is in there that says I'm possible. So that's where that Scoogism comes from for today's show, Rev.
Gotcha. And thanks so much for sharing it. And I'll just sum up what you shared and what the quote means to me, and just saying it this way: defeat never means you'll always be defeated. So I'll just leave it right there. And we appreciate the Scoogism. As we get ready to put a bow on this particular show, many of you all know we're all about sports with the touch of Christ. And I just want to share a quick scripture as we close this particular show out. Very familiar psalm from the psalmist David, Psalm 23, verse 1. Many of you all can recite this particular psalm backwards and forwards. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And I just want to encourage somebody that if the Lord is your shepherd, the one who's being your director, the one as a shepherd who defends you, understand you will always have exactly just what you need, when you need it, where you need it, how you need it. And I just want to encourage everyone to make sure that you can definitively say in your life that the Lord is the one shepherding you. The Lord is the one guiding you. The Lord is the one leading you, protecting you, defending you, so forth and so on. And if the Lord is doing that in all of your endeavors, it could be personal, it could be family, it could be career, whatever it is, you will not lack for anything. For there's another scripture that says, and my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory. So make the Lord your shepherd, and you'll have everything that not only do you want, but also that you will particularly need. All right. With that being said, we're going to put a bow on this particular episode. We want to thank everybody for tuning in to the Seville Sports Mentality Show. Again, we want to thank our special guest, Seville Legacy interview, Jay Oliver, for giving us his time on today. Also, we want to thank Kim, our network communications person, for doing what she does behind the scenes and the graphics that she does from day to day and week to week. Thank you, Mr. Grubb, for co-hosting with me on today. And thank you, Seville family, for tuning in, and make sure you share this broadcast with someone else, especially if you enjoyed it. Last word from you, Mr. Grubb. Oops, hold on. You muted. Go ahead. You muted yourself.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Maybe that's God telling me to say God bless and good night.
All right. Not the Russell Simmons.
It's 3 weeks in a row that I've been using it, and I like it.
Well, keep on using it since Russell is no longer on TV anymore. So it's yours now.
He's in Bangladesh somewhere.
No diggity, no doubt. Well, let me get ready to go to this birthday dinner. It's 8 o'clock. My stomach is saying it's time to eat. Nevertheless, great show. Thank y'all so much. Go ahead and follow the Coatesville Sports Network if you haven't already done so. If you're on YouTube, go ahead on and hit that subscribe button. Until next week for show number 10, thank y'all so much. Peace and love. We'll see you next week on the Coatesville Sports Mentality Show. Peace and love. We're out of here.